Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Botanica. So in the today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the biological and the geochemical processes which are occurring in the ecosystem. Either these processes are at the global system or they are at the local system, but in both the cases they either be they are the part of the biological system as well as they are part of the earth system. That's why we are calling them the biological and the geochemical processes. And in under this particular heading, mostly we are concerned with the biogeochemical cycles, those nutrients which are present in the living organisms and they are in the continuous cycle, that they for example they make the part of the living organisms, and when the living organisms die, those nutrients are decomposed by the certain organisms, and by the one way or the other those nutrients are again goes back to the soil and they are again absorbed by the plants, and those plants are eaten by the predators or the organisms, the living organisms, and the nitrogen will again be the part of those living organisms, and when the plants or the animals die, those nutrients will again goes back to the soil, and this cycle continues. And this is the very simple example of the cycle of nutrients. So but as far as details are concerned, they are very much we can say that they are complicated. So they are mostly water and nutrient cycles in the ecosystem. So we are concerned with the water, which is the hydrological cycle, and also the nutrients. What are the nutrients? Those nutrients mostly which are we are concerned, those are the nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, these carbon. These are the 4 or 5 major nutrients with which we are concerned to know about how they are cycled between and from the living organism. So as far as the biological and geochemical processes are concerned, although most ecosystems receive abundant solar energy, chemical elements are available only in limited amounts. For example, if we relate our nutrient cycling to the energy formation processes of the plants like the photosynthesis, as the photosynthesis is because of the solar energy, there are certain elements which are available in limited amounts because all the nutrients are not synthesized by the solar energy. So life therefore depends on the recycling of essential chemical elements. So although the life is concerned in plants as well as in the animals, there are certain nutrients which should be in the cyclic form, that if they are absorbed then they will be released from those organisms and they will again be a part of another organism or that organism as well. So there is a need of recycling of these essential elements. For example, we can say that they cannot be completely lost from the organisms. So much of an organism's chemical stock is replaced continuously as nutrients are assimilated and waste products are released. So although these recycling is the various biological processes are concerned, but mainly is the usage of those nutrients for their own processes and then excreting certain waste material, and that waste material and that the chemical which is waste material for one organism, it may be useful for another organism, and then that waste material is used by another organism and it become, we can say that, food for those organisms, and by this way the nutrients are recycled again. So when the organisms die, the atoms in the body are returned to the atmosphere, water or soil by the decomposer. So this is the major elements of the recycling, because when the animal's body or the plant body die, decomposition occurs and the mineral content of those organisms are recycled back into the soil if those organisms are present above the soil surface, or if they are present in the water habitat like they are in the oceans, or they are in the gaseous, those minerals which are in the gaseous forms, we can say that they are also released into the atmosphere. So decomposition replenishes the pool of inorganic nutrients that plants and other autotrophs use to build new organic matter. So what happens after the decomposition? When decomposition occurs by the bacteria and fungi mostly, So they replenish, they replace the pool of inorganic nutrients that plants and other autotroph use. So those mineral content which is decomposed, or we can say that which is the result of the decomposition, it is again used by the living organism, by the plants, and by using those inorganic nutrients they make new organic matter, and now those nutrients will be the part of a plant or other organism. So because these nutrient cycles involve both biotic and abiotic components, because they are at one time they are part of the living organism, and at the other time they may be the part of the atmosphere or some other environmental factors. So there are both the components of the ecosystem. There are the biotic components as well as the abiotic components, which are interrelated, which are interdependent, interassociated with one another. So what they do, because of this association between the abiotic and biotic component of the ecosystem, they are called biogeochemical cycle. Bio for the living organism, and geochemical means as the earth or the other some environmental factors are associated. So that's why they are called biogeochemical cycles. So an element's specific route through a biogeochemical cycle depends on the elements and the trophic structure of the ecosystem. So as far as we have various inorganic nutrients which are in continuous cycling, so their specific route which is followed by the cycle, or specific we can say that the pathways, how it is fixed, how it will be used, how it will be excreted as the waste material, then again how it will be decomposed, that it can be used by the certain organism and it can be recycled back to the environment. So these are the specific route which varies from one element to another. And why it varies? Because the pathways of utilization and decomposition as well as the usage they are different. So there are specific route for all the inorganic nutrients, and biogeochemical cycle depends on the element and the trophic structure of the ecosystem. So as far as the specific route is concerned, it will depend upon the nature of the element. For example, we are concerned with the carbon, or we are talking about the phosphorus, we are discussing the sulfur or any other inorganic nutrient. So the route will be followed, it will be different, and it will depend upon the nature of the element as well as trophic structure of the ecosystem. At which of the trophic structure we are talking about? For example, we are discussing about the microfauna and flora, or we can say that the microorganisms which are present below the surface of the soil, mostly which are decomposers, or we are talking about the plants which are present on the surface of the soil, or we are talking about the trees, which is the trophic structure which is more elaborative structure and more intense structure, vigorous structure of the plants, or we are talking about some other trophic structure. So these are the specific route which is dependent upon the nature of the element and as well as the trophic structure of the ecosystem. So for convenience, we can recognize two general categories of biogeochemical cycle: global and local. So as far as the biogeochemical cycles are concerned, they may be broadly classified into global and local. So as these two terms are self-explanatory, so what the term global and local means, we are discussing further. So first of all, gaseous forms of carbon, oxygen, sulfur and nitrogen occur in the atmosphere. As we know that there are certain nutrients which are, we can say that the carbon is present in the form of a carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, oxygen is present in O2 form, sulfur is also present along with the nitrogen, as nitrogen makes 79 to 80% part of the atmosphere. So these all are present in the gaseous forms in the atmosphere. And we also know that this particular atmosphere is common to all living organisms, and these gaseous forms are free to move from one locality to another or from one region to another, and cycles of these elements are essentially global. So we cannot say that the carbon dioxide which is fixed by the plants at one place, it is coming from the same environment or from the same locality. The carbon dioxide which is fixed by the plant, it may be coming from the far-flung areas. So that's why we can say that the atmosphere or this particular cycle is global. For example, Some of the carbon and oxygen atoms a plant requires from the air as CO2 may have been released into the atmosphere by the respiration of an organism in the distant local. So as far as the atmosphere is common to all living organisms, so gases are in the free form and they are moving from one place to another in a free form. So that's why we cannot say that the CO2 which is released here it will also be fixed by the plants which are present in this particular locality. Or we can say that the CO2 which is emitted by the burning of the fuel or burning of from the chimneys of certain industries. So though that carbon dioxide can move from that particular area to far-flung areas, hundreds of kilometers away, and it can be fixed at another area. So as far as these gaseous structures are concerned, they are global. So this is the global form of biogeochemical cycle, and the next is the other elements which are including the phosphorus, potassium and calcium. So as far as these three elements are concerned, they are too heavy, they are not present in the gaseous forms, and they are too heavy to occur and transported by the air or in the form of a gases. So they are present at the earth's surface, although they are transported in the dust along with the dust, but their movement is restricted. They are not freely moving from one place to another. So in terrestrial ecosystem, these element cycles more locally absorbed from the soil by the plant roots and eventually return to the soil by decomposer. So as far as these elements are concerned, like those elements which are heavy and cannot be carried out by the, we can say that the wind, or they are not present in the freely gaseous form, so they are locally absorbed and locally emitted. So their biogeochemical cycle, we can say that it is in restricted area. So either they are wasted or they are lost through the runoff of the water. So there is a possibility that it can be used some other part, but mostly as far as these three elements are concerned, they are locally used. In aquatic ecosystem, however, the cycle more broadly as dissolved forms carried in the current. So but it is the we can say that it is a very small quantity, or we can say that it will not make the major part of it, but mostly these phosphorus, potassium and calcium, they are part of the local biogeochemical cycle.